and welcome to another of Mrs. Patnell's literacy lessons. So, how are you all? I hope you're fine. We have spent the last 4 weeks when we've been home learning looking at, we started with stone soup and then we moved on to making our own stone soup. So we wrote some instruction writing. Then we went on to looking at non-fiction books. So we were looking at facts that are absolutely true. And we wrote our own facts. And we found out lots and lots about healthy eating and what kind of food is good for our body and helps us to grow and stay fit and healthy. Now this week we're staying with food as our topic, but we're moving on to a fiction book. And remember, fiction is what comes out of someone's imagination, okay? It hasn't really happened, it's not absolutely true. Someone has used their very good imagination to come up with a story that's entertaining and good to read, okay? So this week we are starting to look at this book, which I have to say is one of my favourite books ever, okay? And it is by the author. Remember, the author is the person who writes the book, the author Oliver Jeffers, and I love Oliver Jeffers. He's one of my favourites, okay? He also draws the pictures. So he's what's known as an illustrator as well. So the illustrator draws the pictures, the author writes the story, writes the words. He did both in this book. And this book is called The Incredible Book Eating Boy. So you can see we're moving on, but still sticking with food, even though this particular fella eats some rather strange things, which is books. So not proper food we're talking about now, but using our imagination for different kinds of things to eat. So I'm going to start off by reading you one of my favourite books, and then I'm just going to ask you a few questions about it. And then at that point you can stop the video and chat to your mums and dads, whoever's there with you. And so it's just a nice easy lesson to ease ourselves in, and then over the next 2 weeks we will be working from this book and chatting about the character Henry, who is in the book. So I'm going to nip round towards you so you can see the book a little better. Oops. Here we are, and here's our front page rather. You can see, here he is. This is Henry, who I was just telling you about, and strangely enough, he is posting a big pile of books into his mouth. It's kind of crazy. One, that he can get his mouth that wide, and two, that he's eating books and not some other nutritious food. So let's find out why or how on earth Henry has started to eat books instead of food. There we go. Right. Okay. So here he is up front, and you can see him up close eating his pile of books. So, The Incredible Book Eating Boy by Oliver Jeffers. Henry loved books, but not like you and I love books. No, not quite. So I love books, I love reading books, but Henry loved to eat books. Look at his dinner plate. It all began quite by mistake. One afternoon when he wasn't paying any attention. So he was miles away, book in his hand, having a little look at the cat by the looks of things here, but then accidentally licks the book. He wasn't sure at first and tried eating a single word just to test. So he peeled off one word from the page and ate it. Next, he tried a whole sentence, and then the whole page. So a whole sentence of words with a full stop. He quite liked it. So then, the whole page of a book. Yes, Henry definitely liked them. By Wednesday, he had eaten a whole book. Henry. And by the end of the month, he could eat a whole book in one go. So he no longer had to take a word or a sentence or a page at a time. He took the whole book, just like a biscuit, and ate the whole lot in one go. So now it's so amazing. He's on the stage. Here he is. And there's a big sign up behind him. The incredible book-eating boy. And here he is, throwing one in the air. Oh, and eating it like that in one go without even chewing it. My goodness me, this is all going down into his stomach. Henry loved eating all sorts of books. Storybooks, so fiction ones from your imagination. Dictionaries. Oh, dictionaries are special books that tell you what words mean. Atlases full of maps. Joke books. And books of facts, so non-fiction books as well. He's not choosy. He'll eat any kind of book. Here he is putting them into the food processor as well. Any old type of book for Henry. He even likes to eat some maths books. Henry. But red ones were his absolute favourites. I wonder why. I wonder why red ones taste any different to any other books. And he was going through them at a fierce rate. Look at him. I think he must be in the library here, collecting lots of books. But he's eating them, one after the other. Oh my goodness, Henry. But here is the best bit. The more he ate, the smarter he got. Oh my gosh, it's like all the words and the maths numbers he's eating are going into his brain and making him super clever. It says here, a little diagram, book goes in, and then belly gets full, and then it says information goes to brain. Brain's getting bigger. Do you think that would really happen? If you ate a book, that you would actually feel more clever? I don't think it quite works like that normally. I think there's a bit of imagination going on here. He ate a book about goldfish, and then he knew what to feed to his pet fish Ginger. Straight away after eating the book, ding, he knew. Before long, he could do his father's crossword in the newspaper. So all those special tricky quizzes you often get in newspapers, not that we all have many newspapers these days, he could do it before his dad could even do it. He's so clever. And over here, this is his teacher. He was even smarter than his teacher in school. He knows more than his teacher does. So he's telling her things and teaching her. Oh my goodness me. Henry loved being smart. He thought that if he kept going, he might even become the smartest person on earth. Here he is. This is him thinking, and his imagination bubbles into this big bubble cloud. And he's imagining, look, he's on a special stand, and this guy is giving him a medal that says, smartest person on earth. And that's Henry. Wow, he does seem to be getting extremely smart if he's smarter than his teacher. I mean, who can imagine such a thing? So he kept eating books, and he kept getting smarter and smarter and smarter. So if you have a look, I'm going to pop round here. Here, he's saying lots of amazing looking maths equations here, which looks far too tricky for me to even consider. And then look, he's on a quiz show down here, taking on these adults, and he's winning. His score is 4,367. This guy's only got 2 points, and this guy's got no points. I think he's going home. Yeah. So he's beating adults on quiz shows. But now look at how quick he's eating books. He's throwing them around and just going, and eating one after another. Oh my goodness me, Henry. I'm not sure if this is good news. It says down here, he went from eating books whole to eating 3 or 4 of them at a time. books about anything. Henry wasn't fussy, and he wanted to know it all. So every book he eats, bing, he knows more facts. He's so clever. He can't stop eating books. Oh, but then things started going not quite so well. In fact, they started going very, very wrong. Henry was eating too many books, and too quickly at that. So look, here he is in bed. He's having another big thought, but it's a nightmare, because it's at bedtime and it looks very dark, so it's a nightmare. And he's imagining, here's Henry, that he's being chased by this big book with a scary face. "I'm going to eat you," says the book. That's not so good, is it? No. And then over here, if we look, so things are going much, he's eating, sorry, let me go back. Henry was eating too many books and too quickly at that. So here he has bite, chew, 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 gulp. Oh my gosh, he's starting to turn green, and then greener, and then greenest, and then he's being sick in the toilet. He was beginning to feel a little ill. Oh no, poor old Henry. But here is the worst bit. Everything he was learning was getting mixed up in his head, like a washing machine churning all his facts and numbers around together and mixing them up. Can you see what he's saying here? He's saying 6 add 2 equals 3. No, Henry. We know that 6 counts on 2 more. 6, 7, 8. The answer's 8, not 3. Oh, Henry, no, it's all getting mixed up. He didn't have time to digest it properly. Remember, digesting is eating your food down into your stomach. So he's not chewing it. It's not getting digested through his body. So it's all just sitting there like a big old library in his belly. It became quite embarrassing for him to speak. When he opens his mouth, what comes out? He can't speak properly. So he stops himself, because every time he opens his mouth, just rubbish comes out, nonsense words come out of his mouth. Suddenly, Henry didn't feel very smart at all. Here he is in class, and everyone's got their hands up. I know, miss, ask me, I know. And Henry, he's just scratching his head. Don't know the answer. Poor old Henry. It's all jumbled up in there. More than one person told him he should stop eating books. So he's gone to see a doctor. Here he is. He says, "Your head and belly can't cope, Henry." And Dad's saying, "No more books, Henry." Oh dear. And besides, it means no one else can enjoy them, is the book saying that. He's got a point. And it says, "You owe a total of," this is the librarian telling him how much money he owes for eating all of the library's books. "I bet it's hundreds of pounds, don't you?" Yes. And Mr. Book, you absolutely have a point. If Henry was to eat every book in the world, no one else would be able to enjoy them. That would be awful. So Henry gave up eating books, and he sat sadly for a long time. What was he to do? He doesn't know what to do with himself now. Now he's no longer eating books. He's just sat very still. He's thinking, what do I do now? He doesn't know. Then, after a while, and almost by accident, Henry picked up a half-eaten book from the floor. He's going to start eating it again. But instead of putting it into his mouth, Henry opened it up. and began to read. What a good idea, Henry. And it was so good. I bet it was, Henry. It's much better to read it than to eat it. Henry discovered that he loved to read, and he thought that if he read enough, he might still become the smartest person on earth. I think it's a far better way to become smart, Henry, is to read the book. Now, Henry reads all of the time, although every now and then, okay, so he's eating his broccoli instead, he's reading his book instead, but every now and then, what's happened here? I think he's had a munch out of the corner of my book. And that's the end. So, good old Henry, he enjoyed eating books, he got super clever, but then it started to go a bit wrong. And he kept having these jumbled up thoughts and he couldn't speak. And he couldn't say his maths properly. So then he decided that he would read the books instead and munch on broccoli instead. I think that's what's known as quite a happy ending to our book today. Now, I have a couple of questions for you about this book. And you can chat about them at the end of the video if you want. So you can turn off the video and chat to mums and dads about it if you want to. Or you can just pause the video and go through them one at a time. But my first question that I'd like you to discuss with mums and dads at home is, what were your favourite bits of the story, okay? So in order to do that, you're going to have a good think about what happened in the story. What were your favourite bits? Did you like when he accidentally first licked a book and it tasted good? Or did you like it when things were going wrong and he started to talk nonsense and he couldn't think properly? So have a think, what was your favourite bit of the book? And if you can tell your adults why it was your favourite, then that will be excellent, okay? So your favourite bit of the book and why, okay? Maybe there was a bit that you didn't like. Find it hard to believe in this excellent book, but sometimes we don't all like the same things. So maybe there was a bit you didn't like. So tell your parents that. And why didn't you like it? Maybe it was the bad dream page, because when that book was chasing him, maybe you didn't like that because it was a bit scary, possibly. So have a little think. Okay, now you can pause the video. But here is your second question I want you to have a chat about, okay? Henry starts eating one single word and then he goes on to eating a whole sentence before he goes on to a page and a whole book. But my question to you is, if you were like Henry and you decided to eat a book, but you started with one single word, just like Henry did, what word would you like to eat first? So think of all the words that you know in your head and you know maybe the meaning of, or just like the sound of those words. What one word would you like to start eating first? So that's your second question. You can pause the video if you want to. But the third question is, okay, now imagine you've just eaten your first book. Maybe you've chewed it a bit, so it's not like when Henry was swallowing them whole. You've chewed it a bit. You've moved it around your mouth. You've swallowed it down your esophagus and into your stomach. How would you describe what it tastes like? What vocabulary, which means good words, okay, or any words, but I want good words, okay? What vocabulary, what good words could you use to describe the taste of a book? Now, I don't know about you, but I've never eaten a book before, and I don't imagine you have, and I'm certainly not asking you to go and try one now, because I think you would be sick like Henry became. So no eating of books, but use your imagination. If you could use some very amazingly cool words to describe how a book might taste, what words would you use? Now, I think, looking at this book in particular, I think it's kind of brown, like a biscuit, like I might dunk it in my tea. So I think that it might be, I might go for sweet. That might be one way I might describe a book. It might be Maybe it's a bit savoury. Maybe it's not sweet at all. It's savoury. So it doesn't taste of sweet things at all. It's a bit like when you eat a sandwich. It's more savoury flavours. Or I might describe it as, bland even. Bland is a special word that means doesn't really taste of anything at all when you're describing something you're eating and you say it's bland. It doesn't really have any flavour. So maybe I could eat this book and find it tastes of very little, so it could be bland. So think of some very funky magic words that would make me twizzle my fingers of excitement to describe how you think a book would taste if you were to eat it. And remember, you're using your imagination, so there could be any words you like that you think would describe that flavour. And that is the end of our literacy lesson today. But we're coming back again tomorrow to look through our book again by Oliver Jeffers, the incredible book-eating boy. And we have some more work to do this week, so we shall see how we go with that tomorrow. Cheerio then. Bye-bye.